Welcome to the latest edition of Hotspot with me, John Pennington, in England, and Chetan Narula in a slightly noisy press box out in Muralitharan. So I do apologise for the background noise. We'll do our best to get through things. Hello, Chetan.
Hello, John. Once again, welcome to all our viewers. And we are at the semi-final stage in Dhaka now.
Absolutely. We're going to look ahead to the semi-finals fairly soon, but we just want to review the final three games of the group stage. We'll start off with the Sri Lanka-New Zealand game. It was a virtual quarter-final, if you like, and a game that really developed into something very interesting in the end, because New Zealand's bowled out for just 60. I mean, remarkable performance in Sri Lanka. Rangana Herath taking 5 for 3, Senanayaka taking a couple of wickets, and I don't know that any of us really saw that coming at the halfway stage, because Sri Lanka themselves had been bowled out for 119. Chetan, just give us your sort of overview of that game for us.
Absolutely, John. I think you're right there. Nobody saw that coming. That particular defeat for New Zealand, because the kind of form or the kind of momentum they've been building through the last 3-4 months. With the kind of form that their batsmen have been in the last 3-4 months, especially against West Indies and India in the limited overs format. 120 was not that big, bigger total, especially considering, under the lights. There wasn't much dew around that day. Obviously, we saw that the way the spinners were able to grip their ball, but the Sri Lankan spinners were able to grip the ball. But the fact of the matter is that 120 is still not a huge total in T20 cricket. I think more than anything, I think Herath bowled fantastically. It was a fantastic spell of bowling whenever you take 5 wickets for 3 runs. Having said that, though, I think Kiwi batsmen were also guilty of playing some poor shots, especially Brendan McCullum. What I don't really understand. I mean, you're beaten twice by a spinner and then you just step out and try to hit it for a 6. Especially you're the topmost guy who's in form and the captain of the side. I thought that was the most restless move by Brendan McCullum I've seen in the last 3 months, given that I was in New Zealand and watching New Zealand's progress against India very closely. So, quite disappointing performance from New Zealand as a whole. I think the only batsman who actually got out to Herath was Ross Taylor. The others just threw away the wickets. They were also hampered by the fact that Corey Anderson had injured himself, but again, one batsman, not sure. Nobody else was sticking around except Kane Williamson, so not sure how much of a difference that would have made. But the big point is that Sri Lanka, despite missing Dinesh Chandimal, who's not really a figurehead captain, I mean, he's not really that influential, or he's not just a token captain. Sri Lanka, despite missing that, they were missing that leadership spark. Lasith Malinga didn't really prove to be a great captain, but the way the senior players stepped up, Jayawardene, Sangakkara, they were all there, trying to do the best for their country. It was just really great to see. What a great bowling spell, actually.
It was, and Herath, of course, has done it before. Sorry, Chetan, I've butted in there, but I just want to say Herath did it before in the last tournament. He came into the semi-final replacing Dhananjaya and took key wickets, so he's a proven performer.
I mean, that's what a lot of people have been baffled by their selection a bit, because Ajanta Mendes, especially because of the dew around Ajanta Mendes, has not been in that great a form. I mean, the last time Ajanta Mendes took too many wickets in this format was against Zimbabwe in 2012. After that, he was not even that successful in the rest of the tournament there itself. So it's a bit of a staggering choice that Rangana Herath doesn't play ahead of Ajanta Mendes, because what a spinner! I mean, let's just neglect that spell for a bit. But otherwise, too, I think he's the best spinner after Muralitharan setup at the moment.
Okay, and then we must move on to the games that you were at a couple of days ago. First of all, Australia-Bangladesh. I mean, you went for Bangladesh to beat Australia. I thought Australia would be too strong, and really Australia finally proved why we thought, or they were indeed, pre-tournament favourites. They came to the party. Finch and Warner really fired at the top of the order, and they really rolled Bangladesh aside from when Shakib Al Hasan and Mushfiq Ibrahim were batting together. It was a dominant performance from Australia, but obviously far too late for it to have any impact. Both sides were already out.
Well, after the defeat, Bangladesh skipper Mushfiq Ibrahim was again talking about the fact he was talking about he didn't really know what went wrong for them to lose that particular game. I thought I could tell him because your openers didn't bat for more than 4 overs without adding 13 runs and lost both their wickets. I mean, if one of them had the decent sense to see out the power play while the other goes on hitting, and then you have Shakibul Hasan and Rahim himself coming into play, you I mean, yes, this game Australia fired, but if every game you can consistently hit the 160 mark or sometimes get the 170 mark with your top order firing, then your spinners can get into the job. Otherwise, with 150 run score, when the opposition batsman or the opposition top order, we saw both Finch and Warner getting runs. When that happens, 150 odd is not really that big a total. Um, that's what, like we had discussed earlier too. That's what Australia were missing in this particular tournament. That their top order was not really firing. But yes, the two openers got runs, but the rest of them again didn't. Cameron White got out, and Shane Watson wasn't sent up the order. So all in all, I think Australia didn't really look like a team that could, reach the semis because of the fact that their top four batsmen were not really, giving or contributing too many runs to their giving too many to their team and team scores. And I was just thinking after our last hangout, I mean, who was the one batsman that would have probably, batted in that sort of situation? It could either have been George Bailey or Brad Hodge for that particular role, or Finch is sort of that sort of a batsman, to just hold one in together. But again, Warner didn't really get going, so Finch had to step in there. So all in all, it didn't really work out for Australia, and there's no really surprise, no surprises really why they're going home.
Okay, and the other team, of course, going home is Pakistan. They were my pre-tournament picks. They were my pick to win against the West Indies, but in truth, they came off second best in most departments. I mean, a lot of focus, I think, quite rightly, on the way that Darren Sammy and Dwayne Bravo batted in the last 5 overs, almost doubling the West Indies score, and then Pakistan dismissed for just 82 as the West Indies spinners really took hold, perhaps a little bit like the Sri Lankans. So it sort of whets the appetite maybe for the game later on today. I mean, you were at that game, Chetan. Just talk us through how you saw it.
Well, it was a magnificent game. Uh, and it wasn't a game for 40 overs actually. It was a game that lasted 10 overs. The last 5 overs of the West Indies batting and the first 5 overs of the Pakistan batting, because that is when the game was decided really. Because West Indies, the thing about this West Indies team is that they know how to manipulate this particular format. Even if Gale or Smith or Samuels and Simmons, they don't get going. I mean, 82 runs in the last 5 overs. That is insane hitting. That is insane hitting. I mean, we were all going gaga how Maxwell hit so many runs and how West Indies hit so many runs against Australia. Maxwell against Pakistan, Sammy against Australia. But I think those two were put in the shade by what Bravo and Sammy did on this particular day. 82 runs in 5 overs, taking Saeed Ajmal, and this is a Pakistan bowling attack that was a bit in form recently. They did well against Bangladesh. The first 15 overs against Pakistan, they were doing well. But the brute force with which they were hit, 82 and 5, what that did was it just shell shocked the Pakistanis so much that they forgot that 166 is not. I mean, they have the batsmen to score 166 runs. That's the big deal. But they came out, and yes, Ajmal Shehzad got out of the first ball, but the kind of shots that Umar Akmal and Kamran Akmal and Mohammad Hafiz and Shoaib Malik they played, I mean, it was disappointing. It was really disappointing to see Pakistan's batting really fold the way that it did. Those were not really shots that should have been played at that particular stage. Somebody, they like I said about the Australian team, they needed somebody at the top to just hold one end together, and I think they were missing Misbah ul Haq in their batting in this particular moment. Disappointing for Pakistan, but West Indies are really on a roll here.
They certainly are, and they take on Sri Lanka, of course, in the first semi-final a little bit later on today. I found it quite interesting in the sort of press conference as Darren Sammy said, well, of course Sri Lanka are going to be thinking about 2012 when we beat them by 36 runs. Of course they're going to be thinking about the warm-up game when they won by 33 runs. Paul Farbrae, Sri Lanka coach, no, not going to be discussed at all, but surely it is going to be in the back of the Sri Lanka players' mind, isn't it? Because the teams haven't changed all that much.
Well, that's there. Obviously, I mean, it's a replay of the 2012 final, and different players. All the teams haven't changed much. The different players have come up for West Indies. Marlon Samuels is not in form. Lemuel Simmons has come up at number three. He's taken that position. Darren Sammy has become a very belligerent late order batsman. Um, and also for Sri Lanka, Malinga is not the same bowler that he was 2 years ago. Obviously, he still has that thing of last spell. I think Kulasekara is the more potent medium pacer in the Lankan setup at the moment. Having said that, it's not just going to be the final or the warm-up match that will be in the Lankan minds. It's also the fact that they've been reaching the semi-finals or this stage, knockout stage, the last four stage or the finals of the ICC tournaments for quite some time. They were losing finalists in 2012, losing finalists in 2011. They lost in 2009 to Pakistan. I'm not sure if they were in the semis of 2010. I don't remember, but uh, um, 2007 against Australia again. So they've been making the semis and the finals quite a few times, but they haven't really celebrated an ICC trophy triumph. It's almost like a second South African team choking. They reach the knockout stage. South Africa choke to not reach the stage. But Sri Lanka managed to reach the stage, and then they choke. And it's kind of sad because they won the Asia Cup and they were celebrating it in an open top bus. I mean, you win an ICC tournament and then you celebrate it on an open top bus. So a lot of background in this background stories for this particular first final, but the big thing is the big talking point is that due in Chittagong, and there was a little more pace and bounce in the Chittagong pitch. Mirpur pitches have been very slow. 150, 160 have been competitive totals here. So Sri Lanka are not going to be at a disadvantage because they played here a lot. They won the Asia Cup here. Also, they have the boast of spinners who would like to grip the ball, and slower wickets will obviously be to their advantage. So compared to South Africa, they're not going to be at that much of a disadvantage.
And these two sides, it's something that you touched on in your pre-match piece for us, Chetan, that they play in a similar sort of way. They've got big hitters at the top, they've got real top quality spin bowlers. It really is a fascinating matchup. Both of them have obviously been pushed in the group stages, so they know that when it comes down to it, they've been tested. I mean, really, any final thoughts from you, and then a prediction, really, which way is this one going to go?
The first semi-final?
Yep.
Well, I think West Indies have a little more batting depth. Sri Lankan batting is a little more top-heavy, and we saw in the last few games, despite a poor start in both their last games against Australia and Pakistan, which were must-win games of Indies, they got off. I mean, against Australia they got off to a good start, but lost their way in the middle. But again, they had batsmen in the middle to give them, a last propulsion. In the game against Pakistan, it was similar. They got off to a poor start, but again got 160 on the board. So in that particular sense, the West Indies have their batting figured out really well. So even if they get off to a poor start, they will manage to get some good total, at least 150 on the board. And 150 can be quite competitive on these slower tracks, especially since the women's semi-final is already underway, and we'll be using the same pitch. I think the spinners really cancel out each other. Perhaps the Sri Lankan spinners have a slight advantage. I'm not sure if they'll play both Mendes and Herath. Because Sena Nayak is already there, so not really sure about the Lankan, whether they'll be tempted to play an extra spinner or not. But even then, Samuel Badri and Sunil Narayan have done decently well, and West Indies had some other resources too. I would go with West Indies in this, only because they have a little more batting depth, especially in the middle order, late middle order, and they can get those extra 15-20 runs with that big hitting, get under the ball and hit them out of the park. So I think that might just be the difference in the first semi-final.
I'm going to go with Sri Lanka as well, Chetan, having beaten my pre-tournament pick Pakistan to get us through with it. But to be fair, I did say before, I don't know if I said it with you or on Twitter or somewhere, that the winner of that Pakistan-West Indies game, I really did fancy whoever won it to go on and win overall. But they're just looking very powerful, completely in charge of their game and very confident as well. So I'm going for the West Indies to make the final for the second time in a row. Tomorrow's semi-final, then India against South Africa. I understand you've been in the Indian press conferences. Anything to sort of relate of interest from there? Any late injury concerns at all?
We were just told that Yuvraj is fit to take part in today's practice session. The team has gone to Fatullah to practice. So Yuvraj will be taking part. He sat out yesterday, so Yuvraj is fit at the moment to take part in the practice session. I'm sure if he gets through that safely, he will be playing. I think Shikhar Dhawan will be back opening the innings, and Ajinkya Rahane will only be in the 11 if Yuvraj sits out. I don't see any other changes for India. I think that's the only concern for them. Shikhar Dhawan will be back because MS Dhoni does tend to give him a license to hit out, and he's given him a match stretch, just to clear your head. He did that in New Zealand as well. Worked very well for the Test matches for Shikhar Dhawan. India have a clear advantage here because obviously they played all their four matches under lights. West Indies haven't played all their matches under lights, but they have a fair idea of how the pitches are going to play. Having said that, India have been the team to beat here. They've bowled first in three occasions. The conditions are just perfect for their bowlers. They've got their team combination right with three spinners and their medium pacers using the lights and the little bit due well. I think Bhuvneshwar Kumar will play obviously, but the toss-up could be between Mohit Sharma and Mohammad Shami. Mohammad Shami will get you wickets, but he'll also go for some runs, so that might be a bit of a concern. And maybe Mohit Sharma will come into play because he did well in the last game when India were defending a total. So I think that really counts. You don't want to be giving away too many runs when defending a total, especially if India just make 140, 150. So runs will be at a premium. So that might just swing the odds into Mohit Sharma's favour. For South Africa, the big concern is that they don't really have more than one out-and-out spinner for this particular track. I mean, if it was with Chittagong and there was dew around, then it just equalizes and you use fast bowlers or spinners, doesn't really matter. But here, of course, yes, they are quality fast bowlers, all of them. Stain is there, and Alvin Morkel is there, so Wayne Parner is also there. They're quality fast bowlers, but the fact is, it's a slow pitch, and if the more we've seen with how Ravindra Jadeja has bowled, he's bowled quicker, and he's been the worst spinner out of the three. And when I say the worst spinner, that means he's not been as successful as Ashwin and Mishra. But the fact is, the quicker you bowl on this slower pitches, the easier the batsmen get to hit. So that's South Africa's big problem, that they just have one quality spinner. JP Duminy is obviously there, so maybe South Africa will look to play an extra spinner in their 11. We don't know. And even then, it might just play to India's strength because Indian batsmen are really adept at playing spin, particularly in this format. So I would say India have a little more advantage over South Africa than West Indies have over Sri Lanka, and that's why I'll be going for an India-West Indies final.
Yeah, and rather boringly, I'm going to go for the same. Just quickly, Chet, if you touched on it there, how much of a disadvantage is it for South Africa to be playing in Dakar, as you say, where India played all of their games, and as I say, they haven't got as many out-and-out spinners? Could that be one of the deciding factors for you?
Absolutely, I think it might just be the deciding factor. But the disadvantage is only from the point of view that they don't have too many spinners, because bowlers do tend to bowl with a ball that is not wet. So we have not seen too much of dew in Dhaka. So we can talk all about advantages and disadvantages. We also have to understand the fact that South African batsmen are also very good on their day. The Indian bowlers haven't. Yes, India were tested against Australia, and the fact that they batted first, they lost a few wickets, but they still bowled to an Australian team that were underperforming. South Africa are a little better at playing spin. At the same time, you have AB de Villiers, Quinton de Kock, who was in awesome form against India in South Africa. So you have AB de Villiers, you have David Miller, JP Duminy is in great form. So on the day, the disadvantages might not count too much. The game could change, like we saw in the West Indies-Pakistan game in the last 5 overs. AB de Villiers goes mad, takes 60 of the last 5 overs, the momentum shifts, and India go crazy. So India put under pressure. So yes, India start at a bit of an advantage, having played all the games under lights at Dhaka, but again, it's an unpredictable format.
So there we are, both Chetan and myself going for an India-West Indies final, but we'll see obviously how those games turn out today and tomorrow. We're going to be catching up again in a few days' time, really, to review the semis and look ahead to the final. Chetan, thank you once again for your time today.
Pleasure.
And do hope you can join us again soon here on Cricket World TV when we do another hotspot in a couple of days' time.